Okay. So this is Nicoya. She's a new member. So, hey everyone, let me just open this. Hey everyone, I've been a totally different person for the past 3 years. I used to be so full of life and have goals and dreams. And now my situation has led me to think that I can't want those things because it will harm my body. Now I can't even work. I can't control my emotions and I get panic attacks every day. I have anxious attachment issues and my confidence is declining. It all started after a heartbreak, but got worse after a miscarriage at 5 months. I feel everything. I'm tensed most of the time and I'm scared when I'm alone. Sometimes I feel vibrations in my body as well. I just need to learn how to move through my emotions and not feel stuck. I honestly don't know what to do anymore. So, like, I can feel that, like, that's extremely difficult. Just give me 1 second. That, like, that is a really, really difficult experience. And so I really want to say that you're not doing a single thing wrong. And I just want to read through this again. Even what you were vulnerable in sharing like the miscarriage. That is like a really deep pain, that happens especially with women. And so everything that you described, like um, yeah, panic attacks and confidence is declining. So the good news is, even though this is a difficult process, is that all of that stuff that you're kind of talking about, that all these like really bad experiences that you're having, they all really just have to do with emotional suppression. So as we've been talking about. So an example of emotional suppression is you want to cry, you feel all of that deep emotion, but you hold it in because we've all been taught like, oh, adults don't cry, right? Why am I going to be crying like a little child here? And so I'm trying to think of, let me see, because this question is basically how do we kind of, in the best way possible, explain how to start connecting with your emotions? Well, the first thing I would say, if crying is possible, so if you kind of get very emotional, if that's already possible for you, that's great. And I would say that crying is the most important thing that you could ever do to heal your nervous system. So it can be everything that you mentioned, like your confidence is declining. It can feel so complex. Like, how the hell am I going to fix my life? How am I? It seems impossible when you're starting to when you're thinking of how to solve this stuff, right? That's how our mind works. It's very simple because instead of trying to fix it, find a solution, like I have to think of a way out of this, the solution is only your emotion. So, like I said, if crying can happen for you, go in the direction of that. Play sad music, do whatever you can to cry, and you'll notice that certain things will trigger you. And then you have that big energy here, like you need to cry. And then let yourself cry as long as possible. And you will see that eventually, in that moment, that all of that pain is gone. But the thing is, sadly, we have so much pain that you're going to have to do this over and over, basically every time that you feel like you need to cry. And the other thing, which is, I've talked about in the video already, is anger. Um, do you, you can say something, Jill. Do you think it's like we should talk about that too, or
Yeah. I mean, I was just, obviously agree with everything that you said, but just the volume of difficult circumstances that um, Nicole has been through, sort of back to back. There's going to be a lot that's like right here, you know, ready to be released, and um, the fact that you're tense all the time, experiencing panic attacks would be a very natural bodily reaction to having that, the sort of doors to your emotions just almost bursting, but not quite because you're, trying to keep it together, which of course is the expected natural thing to do. Um, but just to reassure that to let that out, and as Steve said, if crying is available, then I guess it's worth reinstating every video and almost every question, that because of how heavily we programmed our around crying, and just how unexpected it is for the spiritual journey to be an endless, seemingly endless experience of crying. But even for me, it's still an amazing realization that it's just every day, and that we're programmed not to want to hear that, but we'll probably say it like every multiple times, every single Q&A. But then you were saying about anger, Steve, is in like, just to reinstate that releasing anger is part of the same process. Is that what you were gonna say?
Yeah, but I just thought of something, which is maybe to give her like very practical tips because
Mhm.
so the first thing is because pretty much all adults have learned to not cry, and it's seen as like I'm an adult and adults don't cry. We have a giant resistance to crying, and how that will manifest in your experience is that probably trying to look at this pain. So the miscarriage is probably the most painful thing that happened to you recently. And so if you were to, let's say, close your eyes and try to remember what happened to you, that's probably where you don't want to go because it could be like so unbearable. It can feel like torture, right? And so the tips that I want to give you is basically first to know that there will be a giant amount of fear if crying is not very easy right now. So if you do experience a lot of fear, first it's normal, it's part of the process. And you can control how slowly you do this process. So if it feels like unbelievably overwhelming, just stop for that day, right? And try the next day. Or if you feel, I don't know if you're busy with work and everything, you are the one that controls the pace of this. So to make it realistic and to make it actually something that will work for you, instead of you trying to go so deep in one day and then you give up because it's like unbearable. So this is like going back to it. So it's like if you try, you close your eyes and it's unbearable. Well, try again later. And then slowly, it's like you're dipping your toe in the water and seeing that, yes, there's a lot of fear, but the fear doesn't really do anything, right? After the whole experience, you're like, okay, I didn't die. Nothing bad happened to me. So I can go back to it later. And you're getting used to fear. And the more that you get used to fear, the easier it will be to cry. And then, just to say it again, basically all of that stuff that you're going through to kind of alleviate all of that is just like crying and crying. Like the phrase that's in my mind is like the spiritual path is you becoming really great at crying, and it becomes second nature. Like, oh my God, I'm feeling all of this suffering, I'm going to cry in the bathroom just to release it, because at first it can feel horrible, but like I said, as you experiment with it and you go deeper and deeper, crying will become easy. So that's another really important thing to say, because if you try it and you're like, holy crap, this is the worst thing I've ever experienced, it's not going to be that way forever. And so yeah, and then the anger, I'm not sure if she's also experiencing it, but it's basically the same thing. So I would say that most of it is crying. But if you ever notice that you're very irritated or you feel very bitter, right? I noticed this on my journey where I was allowing myself to be a very bitter person, complaining about my life and everything. And then after like 20 minutes, I was like, wait a minute, this is not just bitterness. Actually, if I go deep into it, I'm like so angry, I'm so full of rage. And so that's another explanation of how something on the surface can feel like kind of small. Like I don't think I have much anger, but if you're willing to look at it, it will probably open up and then you're like, wow, this is huge. And then, releasing anger, all of this stuff that we talk about is always done in private when you're alone and there's nobody around, right? So that you don't hurt people with your anger. And so it could be simple things. I mean, if anger is also difficult, in the beginning, it's just maybe saying things out loud that you're scared to say. So if somebody irritates you, let's say you just spoke to them and they turn around and they're gone, they won't hear you, then you can say something mean that you wanted to say. That is you beginning to embrace your anger. And later on, like we've said, it can be a little bit more physical. For a few seconds, you can do something like that, or you can show the middle finger, really, whatever it is that expresses that anger. And I want to stress that whether it's crying or releasing anger, this is something that you're doing in that moment to release it in that moment. So if I'm feeling like a lot of anger and I do this for a few seconds, maybe I have to do it multiple times. I'm doing it so that this angry energy gets smaller and smaller right now. So if I have this anger here and it's very big and I do something, okay, it's a little bit smaller, then do something else and you're releasing until it's gone. So crying or releasing anger is to actually release it in the moment it's happening. This is not something, it's not for you to become an angry person at people. It's for you to deal with your anger to such an extent, you release it so much that maybe the person that just triggered your anger, if you released it in the bathroom by yourself, maybe you'll speak to them again and feel nothing. You're not angry at them anymore. So this is what, we're talking about. It's to release and to free you, and then you go back to whoever you're talking to and you've released it. You've unburdened this from yourself.
Yeah. And again, very like practical tools, as if there's things that you know trigger your tears and crying, there's things that really make you, instantly lump in the throat and want to cry. You can use those just on a very, very practical level, just to start the process. Um, because if it's there to come and you have a reliable source, you can't always use the same things every time. It's not like you can be like, oh, I'm going to cry now. But if you feel it's possible, then that can be a very practical thing to do. Like videos that are particularly emotional, memories, these sorts of things. And if there's any resistance to crying and there's like, voices in your head saying that it's not acceptable, or like ideas of people judging and shaming you, you can just think that we're here and like, the community's here sort of cheering you on to do it. So um yeah, I think just because you summed it up very clearly in that last sentence about just wanting to move through the emotions and not feel stuck. And it's great that you identified that word through, because it's always going to be through and not around or under or anything like that.
Yeah, and it just gave me an idea. Maybe we could post this somehow. Is sort of a playlist of sad music because I've got a lot of stuff like that, and
Yeah.
that could help people. And yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, we can do a category of crying tools.
yeah. Okay.